Well, an article, Global Economic Governance Institutions and the Developing World, started to say that an important characteristic of global political economy has been an establishment of international economic institutions, generally established by intergovernmental agreement. Some of these institutions, such as World Bank, were established or a few days after the end of the Second World War. However, in 30 years, there have been a notable increment of these institutions. The institutions such as Z8 and Z20 appeared in the international arena. These institutions sometimes are regarded as controversial. Third world countries have relied on them for loans and development funds. Critics saw these institutions as a major impediment to autonomous development, so their impact on the third world has been the focus of particular controversy. So there is a controversy of these institutions, and there is a doubt whether they should become more democratic and what role should they play. The appearance of these controversies we could find in the past, in the 1944 during the Bretton Woods. For example, International Monetary Fund and the World Bank appeared as a consequence of the Bretton Woods Conference. The main objective was to have a stable liberal world economic order to compensate the instabilities during the war. However, the USA and Britain were the main negotiators do not have the same opinion. USA wanted to have liberal system based on the dollar and American dominance. The main objective was to avoid the collapse of world trade and also to avoid falling into the imperialist protectionism, which already have occurred in the past. Apart from that, Bretton Woods system facilitated American leadership and dominance after the Second World War. The leadership of America was characterized as hegemony. The key mechanisms and institutions that were established at Bretton Woods was, first of all, currency stability. It was seen like a precondition for the stable expansion of international trade. It was based on the dollar exchange standards because of the dominance of the United States economy. It has a dominance because it held the majority of currency and gold reserves gained during gold standard era. So this system allowed fixed exchange rates. Bretton Woods keep eye on speculative international currency transaction in order to avoid currency instability. So non-convertibility currencies were not tradable on markets. And the second institution was credit and financing institutions. Bretton Woods established credit mechanism that operated through the IMF. It was established to help countries to finance short-term balance of payments deficits. And the last one is a promotion of free international trade and investment. On the one hand, we have the General Agreement of Tariffs and Trade, created in 1948. It was created during the period when USA doesn't achieve to establish an international trade organization, and as a consequence of that, the USA pretends to bind these agreements on international movements towards free trade. However, the third world countries do not agree with this decision. Finally, general agreements of tariffs and trade established rules that wanted to avoid the discrimination between countries and the progressive reduction of tariffs over time. In 1990, this organization incorporated into the World Trade Organization. It officially started in 1995. It deals with regulation of trade between participating countries by providing a framework for negotiating trade agreements. So it is important to highlight that there was a disagreement about the nature and the objectives of the Bretton Woods institution, especially IMF. So IMF became a key point of controversy, but in reality its interventionist rule after the Second World War was very limited. IMF conditionally became more powerful in the year 1090. 17 after the collapse of the dollar exchange standards. After that, IMF achieved the power to determine the course of domestic policy for bigger country. So it was very important in 1970s when many countries faced major deficits and they needed the IMF financing. It is interesting to add that the third world countries had a difficult relationship with the Bretton Woods institutions. So, in between 1960s and 1970s, world countries tried to oppose to the power of the IMF and World Bank. So they opposed by pushing their own developmental agenda through UN economic institutions. Additionally, demands from part of the third world countries in order to make changes led to creation of UN Development Programme, Economic and Social Council, etc. Furthermore, there was also creation of other more autonomous third world dominated organizations such as Not Aligned Movement, Group of 77, etc. This organization had a key objective in order to achieve and develop third world industrialization. So when the dollar collapsed in 1971, the previous rule of IMF and World Bank remained unnecessary. From the year 1917, these two organizations became focused on the third world. The World Bank and IMF achieved key points in order to reduce poverty and promote economic development. IMF received a lot of criticism. However, in response to criticism, it decided to develop a new policy space by distancing itself from neoliberalism and recognize USA dominance. Finally, IMF, through the reform, wanted to increase its competence and legitimacy as an independent global actor.